Before the map called Nigeria existed, before the colonizers carved borders and named our lands, there was a people who ruled with wisdom, courage, and divine purpose. Their kings were not mere men. They were chosen by the gods, crowned by spirits, and remembered by time. Across vast forests and open plains, they built cities of red earth and gold. Their armies thundered through the savannah. Their artisans shaped bronze like bread, and their traders crossed oceans long before the British ever arrived. This is the story of civilization that stood tall when empires rose and fell. A story of gods and men, of power and faith, of legacy and pride. From the sacred groves of Ife to the walls of Oyo to the market of Ijebu, their names still echo. They call themselves the Yoruba, children of Oduduwa. And this is the Untold Nigeria. But to understand how the Yoruba Kingdoms rose, we must first return to where it all began, to a kind shrouded in myth and sacred mystery. A time when the world was covered by endless waters and the heavens still whispered to the heaven. It is said that Olodumare, the supreme creator, sent a being down from the skies, which is Oduduwa, bearing a chain, a rooster, and a handful of sand. With each step, the rooster scattered the sand across the waters, and from that divine act, land was formed. That land became Ile-Ife, the cradle of the Yoruba people, the place where heaven first touched earth. And from this sacred beginning, kingdoms would rise that would challenge empires and define generations. From her rose kingdoms that would dominate trade, warfare, and diplomacy for centuries. Those are Oyo, Ijebu, Egba, Ondo, amongst others. The Oyo Empire soon became the most powerful of them all. Founded in the 14th century, Oyo rose on the northern savannah, perfectly positioned for trade and defense. At its peak, Oyo commanded an army of thousands, led by the fearsome Eso warriors, elite horsemen who galloped across the plains with unmatched discipline. Oyo's cavalry dominated West Africa, defeating rival states and expanding its reach deep into Dahomey and beyond. The Oyo Empire was ruled by the Ile-Ife of Oyo, whose power was balanced by a council of nobles, the Oyomisi, a political structure so advanced it inspired early ideas of checks and balances long before colonial government existed. Trade flow through Oyo's borders, ivory, leather, kola nut, and slaves exchanged for European firearms and goods. The capital city, Oyo-Ile, became a bustling hub of diplomacy, wealth, and power. But even as Oyo grew, the Yoruba world was not a single empire. It was a constellation of kingdoms, each with its own gods, rulers, and destiny. While Oyo commanded armies, Ile-Ife remained a spiritual anchor of the Yoruba civilization. It was here that art became divine. Ife's bronze and terracotta sculptures stunned even modern archaeologists, their naturalism rivaling the best of ancient Greece. These artworks weren't mere decorations. They were sacred vessels of power used in the worship of Orisha, the deities that governed every aspect of life. To the Yoruba, gods like Shango, the thunderous king of lightning, Ogun, the gods of iron and war, and Obatala, the gods of creation, weren't distant figures. They were living forces guiding daily existence. Through festivals, rituals, and oral traditions, the Yoruba people pass down a legacy of faith that still thrives across continents, from Lagos to Havana, from Ibadan to Bahia. Every merchant seeking to reach the European traders had to pass through Ijebu territory and pay tribute. This control made Ijebu immensely wealthy, allowing them to build a world cities, complex markets, and a thriving economic system. Ijebu was known not just for trade, but for its discipline and organization. It has strict laws, structured governance, and a deep sense of identity. When the British later sought to dominate Nigeria, they met fierce resistance from Ijebu warriors who fought to protect their sovereignty. The Yoruba Kingdoms were often rivals. Oyo against Dahomey, Egba against Ijebu, yet they shared a common language, belief, and pride. Each kingdom contributed uniquely to the Yoruba identity. Oyo, they contribute power and politics. Ife, spirituality and heart. Ijebu, trade and commerce. Egba, courage and resilience. Together, they formed one of the most influential civilizations in African history, one that shaped across the Atlantic during the slave trade and still echoes in religion, music, and culture today. Even after the fall of Oyo and the colonial partition of Nigeria, the Yoruba legacy endured. Their governance systems inspired modern leadership. Their art influenced the world. Their spiritual practices evolved into global religions. Santeria, Candomblé, and Ifa celebrated across the Americas. Today, millions still call on Orunmila, Ogun, and Shango, proof that the spirit of the Yoruba Kingdoms was never conquered. The story of the Yoruba Kingdoms is not a tale lost to time. It is a pulse that still beats beneath our skin. In the markets of Ibadan, the shrines of Ife, and the palaces of Oyo, echoes of their greatness still live. They built governments before colonizers wove their flags. They forged art before Europe knew our names. They crafted systems of law, trade, and faith that had their world together long before Nigeria was ever imagined. Their gods like Shango, Ogun, Obatala were not myths of weakness, but symbols of human strength and divine purpose. From generation to generation, through slavery, colonization, and independence, the Yoruba spirit never broke. It only adapted, spreading far beyond Africa, to the Americas, to the Caribbean, and back home again. Today, millions still pour libations, speak the names of Orisha, and remember the wisdom of their ancestors, because the Yoruba legacy was never buried. It was planted, and it continues to grow. So when we speak of Oyo, Ife, and Ijebu, we do not speak of ruins, we speak of roots. And those roots run deep beneath our feet, within our language, and through the bloodline of a people who once ruled and still endure. Every story like this reminds us that Nigeria is more than history, it is heritage. If you believe these stories deserve to be heard, don't just watch, be a part of it. Subscribe, share, and let's bring the Untold Nigeria to light, one story at a time. This is the Untold Nigeria.